So the Victorian election went the way it was expected to go, the way the polls suggested it would, with perhaps the main surprise being the poor showing of the Tills. There's a silver lining for you. And of course, the way the Liberals did even worse than expected. No one expected them to win, but they went nowhere. They didn't do anything. The Labor vote took a heavy hit, but with the Liberal vote sliding ever so slightly backwards, Labor paid no price at all. It might even finish up with an extra seat. So, of course, many voters were turned off by Labor. There was a swing against the Daniel Andrews Labor government of about 6%, enough to lose 9 or 10 seats if all those votes had gone to the Liberals. So the problem here again, as I said on Friday, is the lack of an alternative. Despite all the major parties and preferences, our system is still largely about a choice between two governing parties. So oppositions have to have points of difference. They need to make themselves a compelling choice. The Liberal opposition in Victoria has been weak for many years under many different leaders. But in the end, it's not about the leadership, the character of the actual person in charge. Now, it's not about some messiah figure who's going to rescue them. It's about the positions they take. You have to stand up. You have to have arguments. You have to carry the fight, not follow the polls and use some cutesy social media strategy to smile your way into government. The Liberals, as they did under Malcolm Turnbull federally, have just tended to surrender on the big arguments, surrender on conservative or mainstream values, and try to chase the zeitgeist, chase popularity by matching the Green left rather than contesting them, rather than fighting them. So it's been in Victoria that way. The Liberals have been too timid in criticising and opposing Daniel Andrews' pandemic overreach. Surely one of the main reasons voters had every entitlement to want a change of government. For years, the Liberals wouldn't even rail against the lockdowns, the curfews, the border closures. And then, even after it was all over, and the independent reports confirmed how unnecessary, cruel, futile and damaging all this stuff was, the Liberals still wouldn't go hard. And the other big one, of course, was energy, the climate change and renewables crusade of the Green left, the Andrews Labor government, just hasn't been called out or opposed by the Liberals. Instead, they've campaigned on their own net zero dreams and the renewable energy plans, forgetting their prime responsibility should be to promise and deliver affordable, reliable energy. Now, the media and political class, as you know, is dominated by the Green left, so they interpret every result as an endorsement of their views. And they now say that the Liberals have lost because they didn't move far enough to the Green left. I mean, what do they want now? A one-party state? Now, to demonstrate this point, look at what Malcolm Turnbull has tweeted. He reckons that at the heart of the Liberal loss is that Victoria is the most small L Liberal state in the country, and the Liberal Party has been taken over by the hard right, putting it at odds with the electorate. This is great. The soft left of the Liberal Party reckons that Matthew Guy represents the hard right. You're kidding me, aren't you? This bloke?
Kieran, thank you, and Daniel, to yourself as well. This election is going to be one of the most important in our state's history, and I'm very, very proud of this state. I'm very confident in our state, but there's no doubt our state faces challenges, some of the challenges that we've never faced before.
If the Victorian Liberals have been taken over by the hard right, then Christopher Pyne is Attila the Hun. Remember, in that very debate, Matthew Guy failed to attack Daniel Andrews over a reckless renewable energy plan that's going to add to the state's electricity price and supply crisis. But he's the hard right? Guy also failed in that Sky News People's Forum to attack Andrews for making Melbourne the lockdown capital of the world. Didn't attack him over rings of steel or vaccine mandates or lockdowns and curfews. But in Turnbull's view, Matthew Guy is hard right. Just goes to show how the jellybacks of the Liberal Party are destroying it. A strong Liberal Party providing a real alternative on the key issues would have inflicted a bigger swing against Labor, it would have marginalised the minor parties and received a much bigger swing itself. You have to stand for something, and you have to be prepared to make your main arguments, to attack the government, not back off because you're scared that lots of people might disagree with you. In decades of dealing with Liberal moderates, this is their problem. They'll always cite back to you what their critics will say, as if you're supposed to find a path through politics where no one will criticise you. You're supposed to fight for what's right, for what makes sense, for the values you were elected on. You only need 50% of voters plus one to find your arguments more compelling. And the real point, the tragedy here, is that this isn't about the Liberal Party or Matthew Guy or anyone else. This is about voters. Voters being denied a choice. Voters being denied a conservative or mainstream choice. The Liberal Party has to get back to mainstream values, and quick. It exists to give voters a right of centre choice. And at the moment, it's failing dismally.